Hi everyone, Michelle Fixit here. Today's video I'm going to be talking about POTS versus a CSF leak. So on Facebook, I am part of a lot of different medically complex groups, and so I have learned a fair amount. My son's also medically complex, so of course I learned a lot through my experiences advocating for him. And I guess I'm someone that's had gaslighting since I was like 19. So I've been putting off making a video to kind of expound on some of the things that I've learned about because I don't have all the details. I'm still going through the process, but I'm a lot closer to the end of the finish line than I was several years ago or at any other point in my life. So I just saw some comments about some HEDSers, and if you don't know what HEDS is, it's a hypermobility form of EDS. So, there's a bite and scale. Like if you can do stuff like this, if your arms hyperextend, there's a bunch of stuff. It's called bite and scale. So if you have that, like I do, been diagnosed, took forever to get that diagnosis, then you're going to be predisposed to having certain conditions or issues. There's a lot of literature on this. I've previously been diagnosed with fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, a lot of different things. And when I wasn't really satisfied with those diagnoses, I every so often when we would move would try the rounds with the doctors again. And I knew that I had POTS, which is postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. I only this year, well, technically last year, was able to finally meet a cardiologist who validated all my, concerns, did lots of testing and stuff, because unfortunately when I was pregnant with him, my heart started doing tricks. So that was fantastic. I also almost died of COVID. So there's a lot of underlying things, but when I went in for my POTS diagnosis, I said, I know I have POTS. I just need a tilt table test. And she was like, COVID? And I was like, yes, I've had COVID, but I've had POTS way longer than, me having almost died of COVID recently. So she scheduled it, and it takes forever for the test. I called around to a lot of different places, but it still took a long time. So I do officially, gold standard, have a tilt table test documenting and diagnosing dysautonomia, which is another thing that if you're not aware of, look it up. It's dysfunction with your body. Leads to all kinds of super fun things. POTS, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, orthostatic hypotension, and neurally mediated something. So I was able to get 4 different diagnoses out of the tilt table test. So I was very excited, and then oh goodness, now I have more stuff that I have to learn about. And so the main reason for this video is because right now I've been included in a chat on Facebook, and I think this one in particular is for the EDSers, and they're talking about chronic pain, they're talking about POTS, and I found out within the past year and a half, sort of by accident, sort of by a little bit of nudging, sort of by just researching way too much because I was rapidly declining again, and my mentality, my physicality just don't match up. But I found out through lots of fancy doctors that are hyper-focused on people like me, I like to say the me's, and so POTS can actually be a secondary syndrome, a secondary condition to what's called a chronic CSF leak or a spontaneous CSF leak. I definitely have that. I now have a neurosurgeon. We're working on diagnostic images and stuff like that, because you can have a blind blood patching done, or you can have a targeted blood patching done. You could have a venous fistula, so then you might have to have an operative procedure done. They also have these things called Tavlov cysts, which are a little bit less common, I believe. Don't come at me if you know more about this stuff than I do. I'm just trying to spread the knowledge. And so if you are having headaches a lot, if you are having symptoms of POTS or you have POTS, I was also diagnosed with chronic migraines and basically told, we're going to give you pain pills, we're going to give you a bunch of different medicines. None of those medicines ever really took the edge off my migraines. I had I have, as I am still dealing with this, but I'm in a better position now than I was before. And I'm sorry, this is all over the place. But essentially, if you're me, then you may have the EDS, HEDS, the Chiari malformation, which is when the back of your brain is actually kind of like escaping out of your skull. I found that out recently by reading my own reports, and then was gaslit by my neurologist because she was like, no, you don't meet the diagnostic criteria for that. I don't think it has anything to do with your chronic ocular migraines. They're completely debilitating. And so I have measurements and everything like that, and gaslit recently, fun stuff. And then while I was researching that and finding out that patients that have all the symptoms that I have, because there's a form that someone created with all the different signs and symptoms of Chiari malformation, and the medical community is very delayed in its communication of physicians that are researching, getting the information to physicians that are kind of like out in the hospitals or in a clinical setting. And so there's this big disconnect that you have to have a massive measurement for your Chiari in order to have symptoms, and that's not the case. There's also a thing called brain sagging. And so if you have one of these spontaneous CSF leaks or these chronic CSF leaks, then as you're losing pressure, your CSF pressure, your brain is sagging more and more and more. So it's a whole interconnected web of things. So back to the main point, HEDS or EDS, chronic migraines, POTS, orthostatic hypotension, chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, dysautonomia. I've also been diagnosed with some autoimmune conditions, but I'm not sure the relevancy just yet on that, and I've got them where they're manageable. I heavily suspect that I have MCAS. Charlie quit. And so if you're experiencing all of these things, there are things that you can do at home to kind of troubleshoot yourself, and then you also always have to advocate for yourself and find a great doctor and stuff like that. There are currently only 15 states that actually have CSF leak clinics. If any of this information is interesting to you, as I research, what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to re-research what I've already learned and know, and I'm going to try to put sources from doctors in my comments so that, and then like give a little blurb about what it is, because I'm super busy. My channel is about fixing stuff and everything else in just my life. But I'm hoping that this video will help other people, because there was a disconnect for me when I went to go see my newest neurologist, because Botox is the only thing that sort of gets rid of some of the pain, but then I still have all of the rest of the stuff going on from the chronic migraines. So I still have dysautonomia happening, I still have visual issues, hearing issues, nausea, vomiting. It's like I'm walking around intoxicated, I'm falling into walls, my gait's all messed up, my memory, my recall, all of that stuff is completely messed up. And the only reason that I even landed or was able to successfully land on the chronic CSF leak, which has been life-changing just with the knowledge, because it helps me mitigate the symptoms and find out tips and tricks that other people have been able to utilize, is I was watching a lecture from Dr. Fraser Henderson. He just happens to be really great with, he's a neurosurgeon, and he happens to be really, really great at putting a lot of lectures and literature and research into the needs of the world. Unfortunately, like a lot of the other fancy-smancy doctors, he doesn't take insurance, he's out of network, he wants private pay and everything else, but the trade-off, because I was really grumpy when I found all of that out, but the trade-off for him is that he is educating, or at least trying to, a lot of other neurologists, neurosurgeons. He's trying to broaden all the things that he knows, and then even if you want a private pay, he makes you jump through a bunch of hoops to get to his door, literally, because he wants to help the people that other doctors can't help, and so I believe that it's his way of arming the patients with information so that they can find other doctors, and he's just kind of setting the framework. He's kind of a trailblazer. Dr. Ian Carroll is also another trailblazer in the field with POTS and essentially giving treatments to POTS patients that were previously told you just have to deal with it. Compression pantyhose, up your salt, there you go, boom, boom, boom. And he's found a bunch of POTS patients that are actually spontaneous CSF leakers, and he's amazing. He's trying to advocate as much as he possibly can on these conditions. And so in Dr. Henderson's, oh no, you can't have that, buddy. In Dr. Henderson's, no sir, in Dr. Henderson's lecture, one of the things that was profound for me, because it's positional headaches, and like that just didn't click for me when I first read that. I was like, I don't have positional headaches, because when you've had headaches for so long, if you try to figure out what causes them, and sometimes you're shooting in the dark, you have no idea. My son is trying to get stuff that's in the bathtub. No sir. And so he said, everyone thinks about positional headaches. Everyone thinks about positional headaches as like you lay down and you immediately get relief. He's like, the next time that you have a headache or a migraine, lay down and just stay there. Because it could take 15 minutes, half an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever amount of time. It could take a substantial amount of time for you to start feeling relief from your headache. But if you lay down in the midst of a migraine or a headache, and you start to feel better, it's profound. That's typically a CSF leak. And so, being that I listen and follow directions, the next time my head started to hurt, I laid down. And I just stayed there for a while. And I started to realize as I was just, no stimulus, no cell phone, no anything, just me and my body literally laying on the floor. And I could feel all these different sensations going on. Turns out it was my dura. Just like part of your brain. Like you have your brain, and you have your fluid, and you have your dura, which holds everything together. And I could feel like all these little sensations that I previously was not aware of. I was like, oh, this is really weird. And then I start having all of these different things. And of course my headache, my migraine, was going away. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to lay here until I feel like great. And so it was in those moments that I was like, man, I've got a CSF leak. This is fantastic. How do I fix this? Because then Michelle fixed it. I'm like, how do I fix it? It's like, I found the problem. Took me a while to get here. Like, I started having this stuff happen when I was like 19. Oof. But now I know what the problem is. And so I sat there and I experimented on myself with different lay down periods and everything else, and got myself to a peak performance part of life. And I was super excited. And then I got rear-ended. And then he started having seizures. That was bad. And then once we got him squared up, then I got rear-ended. So then I just I was just not doing well for a while. Like, it was a hit and run, rear-ended thing. So it kind of messed me up. But I learned that I very likely had a CSF leak. And so then I just kept researching and finding out more information on everything. And I got to a point where I was like, you know what? This is something that is more... Oh, Charlie, no! This is something that is more than just... Stop, buddy. No, Mommy's doing a video. Look at Mommy. Mommy doesn't edit, so like you're gonna be part of all this because Mommy's super busy. This is really quick videos. But anyways, so now I have a neurosurgeon, and I was very, very lucky because I happen to... Come here. Come here. You're sad. You just want the toilet paper because you think... You guys are on toilet paper right now, and he is upset because he wants the toilet paper. So now I have a neurosurgeon, and I basically told her everything that was going on. I also have multiple POTS doctors who I should be super excited to have because it took a long time to get put into the POTS clinic that I'm part of now. And they're a little grumpy that I'm like, hey, yeah, I've got POTS, like, diagnosed and then these other things, but, like, I know you want to, like, try to fix me, but not fix me. You just want to, like, kind of help me deal with the symptoms that I have. But here's the thing is, like, I have a CSF leak. You want to have a doctor look at you in a really special way? Tell me you have a CSF leak. So I really don't want to take any of the stuff that you guys want me to take right this second because I want to get my diagnostic treatments on. Because I went from, like, eating so many ibuprofens, Excedrin, and Tylenol, and Aleve, and Advil that, like, I probably fried my liver. And now I'm not taking any meds, and I'm trying to mitigate and overly pay attention to my body. And I'm mitigating this until I can get actual treatment by laying down. Yeah, they're gonna look at you funny. They look at me funny. But you know what? It's whatever works for you. So I mean, for CSF patients, some of the bigger things for, like, moderate treatment is bed rest. Like if you have a big leak that just started, and they're not going to treat it for some reason, caffeine intake is incredibly helpful because it stimulates the little guy inside the brain. Again, I'm taking a diaper off a baby because he's doing potty training, and, like, I'm trying to talk to you guys about stuff. But there's a little guy inside of your brain, not like literally, I'm not a cuckoo bird, but you have a thing inside your brain that produces CSF fluid, and caffeine stimulates it. And so when you have caffeine going on, good job, buddy. Turns out he was getting grumpy about the toilet paper on the potty because he's working on potty training. He's like, Mommy, I had to go pee-pees. And so you guys just were part of, like, Charlie's potty training. And so anyways, if you have, if you take in some caffeine, then it will help stimulate that little guy. Laying down also gives it time to, like, rebuild pressure and everything with your CSF. It's just CSF. I keep saying CSF fluid, but it's cerebral spinal fluid. So if you say fluid afterwards, it's kind of redundant. But yeah, so I have found the sweet spot for sodium intake because sodium intake does really help with POTS. I read that I was supposed to be overly hydrated. I was trying to be overly hydrated. I used to drink between 2 and 4 liters of water per day, typically on the 3 to 4 range. And I was never satiated and thirst. Turns out that I was washing all of my sodium out of my body, and then I'm also a carrier of a salt wasting condition, which already predisposes me to not have much salt in my body, and or to expel it at a faster rate. So I've super upped my sodium intake per my cardiologist. That was like my in between until I had a POTS doctor. So I now take in a fair amount of sodium. I recommend that you have a metabolic blood panel done before you start playing with your sodium levels if you are someone that has POTS and or suspect that you have POTS, because here's something that I'm going to tell you that's going to probably make a bunch of people mad. If you feel that you meet the diagnostic criteria and you are being medically gaslit, I don't know, it's a term that I'm just starting to try to use. Charlie's standing on the toilet. Do not jump down. You have to sit. Sit down, buddy. Thank you. If you feel like you meet the medical criteria, the diagnostic criteria for a condition, and you have been testing yourself at home, know that, like, I care, other people care, because sometimes it takes 19 until current age, a lot of years, to finally get the tilt table test done and to be validated that you do have something that was previously thought of as being a rare condition prior to COVID. So don't be so concerned about getting the fancy paper of the diagnosis, or maybe you don't have medical care or a doctor in the area that would even treat that stuff. I don't know. But try to research and try to advocate for yourself, because eventually you can get there. But I mean, now we're at like 20 minutes and this video has been all over the place, which is the whole reason I didn't want to do these videos. But basically, if you have headaches or migraines, you may or may not have made the correlation that they're postural, meaning positional, meaning the longer that you're upright, the worse your symptoms become. And if you are a slow leaker, it could be that when you get up in the morning and you're standing up, that like you feel great for a little bit, and then you start to feel a little bit less and a little bit less and a little bit less. And it's funny because like I used to use spoon theory for a bunch of stuff. And as it turns out, for me, it wasn't spoon theory stuff. It was, I'm a leaker stuff. And because you can exhaust yourself and, you know, have like no pressure and then start having all this stuff going on with your body and not be aware of it and start blaming, and I was doing this, start blaming physical issues for emotional issues. And a lot of us are really trying to hyper focus on emotional issues creating physical issues, but the reverse can be true. So if you don't feel like you're an anxious person, and your heart just starts doing like random little tricks, like I was going back and forth because I did the heart monitor stuff, and during the tilt table I got to find out about what my body does when I'm upright. I was having tachycardia periods and bradycardia periods, so my heart was like racing and then declining. And like I'm a vehicle person, so it's like if you put a 305 throttle body on a 350 Caprice, it's going to do that. It's going to just like up and down and up and down. And that's what I was doing. And then of course my blood pressure was bottoming out. So prior to learning about all of this, I also knew that I was hypoglycemic and that I had low iron, anemia, and low blood pressure. So at different times when I was really starting to bottom out, and I'm super temperature sensitive, and that's because heat-wise, and that's because heat is a vasodilator and cold is a vasoconstrictor. So my POTS would get super, super, super bad when I was trying to work in the heat, anything like that. Like I was just useless. And so it's stuff like that where if I was starting to feel funky, I'm like, oh, it must be my blood sugar, because like I went through a time period of like just measuring my blood sugar levels and like, okay, let's recognize the symptoms for when your blood sugar is getting really bad. So, you know, even though I really don't like sweets, I carry lots of candy and different sweets around with me so that like when I thought my blood sugar was going low, then I would just munch out on that and hope for the best. And then there's blood pressure thing. So it's like, oh, I must be really low blood pressure for some reason. Even though I'm super hydrated, I really need to pound a liter of water. And it turns out I was washing my sodium out of my body because like I didn't have anything added on or added in. I just was drinking a bunch of water. And my cardiologist is the one that opened the door on that, because she was like, you know, you can dehydrate yourself on a cellular, molecular level if you don't have any electrolytes in your fluids, and you can be washing away, you know, whatever your salt levels are that you have, because the hospitals that I'm affiliated with right now, they share information. And so a lot of my blood tests were showing that, just like I was anemic, they were showing that my sodium levels were always super low. Like really low when I was good. And so if I have really low sodium levels, like not within the normal range, and then I'm mistaking a blood pressure issue with a CSF leak, and then I'm overly hydrating, without any electrolytes being part of that, because like I didn't know until you don't, and if you don't know, then you can't do anything about it. So then I was washing out the little tiny bit of sodium that I didn't have to begin with. So yeah, I guess the gist of this, now that I'm at the tail end of the video, because I'm going to have to upload it and then I'm going to have to share it, because like there's a whole thing going on in one of my Facebook groups where the lady thinks that she might have POTS, but she also has EDS, and then she's like trying to find a way to mitigate her symptoms because she's having headaches and she's feeling worse and worse. And as I read all of that, I'm like, I think you have a CSF leak, girly. I'm not a doctor. I'm just Michelle Fix-It from YouTube land, but I'm not going to out myself and stuff. So I'm just going to make this video, and then I'm going to toss it around in different places, and then people are going to be like, oh, this girl doesn't know anything about anything. Gerbicatus. Or might hit someone like me where it's like, oh, okay, the next time I have a headache or something, then I'm going to lay down. And yes, it can be, if you have POTS and you're very symptomatic, but POTS isn't typically, I'm not going to talk about that. POTS and CSF leaks are the only thing, to my knowledge, right now, and I've heard that in different lectures and seminars from neurologists or neurosurgeons talking about that. Those two conditions are the only ones that improve with laying down. So if you have postural something going on and you lay down and you start to feel better, think CSF leak. And that's it. That's all I'm going to talk about right now. There's a bunch of other stuff I could expound on, but I didn't write down my notes. I didn't make it organized. It's more of a rambling session, but hopefully because I talk rather quickly, either I'm going to annoy you with that, or it's going to make it where it's a little bit more interesting because I don't do all the flashy imagery and all the other stuff. I just kind of talk to a screen, and if you like it, you like it, and if you don't, you don't. It doesn't really bother me. And if you haven't noticed already, my hand is holding this screen, and because I've been upright for a little while, my head is really starting to hurt, and I am starting to have some of my dysautonomia happen, which is I start like shaking. And so if you see me on YouTube, you're going to be like, what in the world? How do you have all these things? And like, you make all these videos and like, you're so upbeat and you're so perky, because I'm either on or I'm off. And it's not a mental health problem that I have going on. It's a physical health issue that's been gaslit for years. And it turns out that my neurosurgeon has been working on CSF leaks and stuff like that for 20 years. There's no excuse for this. He's been dedicating his life to all of this stuff for 20 years. And why is it not mainstream? Make a lot of sense to you? No, doesn't make a lot of sense to me either. So, you know, moms, patients have been able to advocate for themselves and like spread knowledge in a fast way. And I kind of challenge whoever watches this video that if it improves your lifestyle, if you have questions, comments, concerns, or issues, please feel free to message out to me or comment to me. My son is tearing stuff apart. Because I will try to help and I will try to expound on this, and I am going to try to make it where information is in one source, sort of. But also recognize I'm not tech savvy and I'm social media dumb, and I really don't try to do a lot of this stuff, and my time is not messed up. But Michelle Fix-It signing off. Have a fantastic day. Have a great day. All that good stuff. Charlie wants to say bye to you too. He has a can of chickpeas. But you guys have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.